Hello class, today we're going to go over two sets of notes. The first of the two is from the first story we're going to read, which is an jungle. Now, we're going to talk about a few different things, specifically analyzing author's purpose and synthesizing. And this is something that we will continue to discuss with both of these texts. With analyzing author's purpose, we've talked about this in the past, but just to reiterate, author's purpose is the reason that the author is writing. This can be to inform, to entertain, or to persuade. You may have heard of this "it's easy as pie" slogan in elementary or middle school, and that's just an easy way to remember the three different types of purpose. When persuading, an author wants to move people to take a particular action. This means they have a specific audience and a focused message. If you're trying to convince people to do something, you want to know as much about them as you can so that you can be more convincing, and also so that you don't accidentally offend them. Upton Sinclair offers a vivid and realistic detailed description of work and life in the slaughterhouses in the meatpacking industry of Chicago. So The Jungle is a full novel. It was written in the early 20th century, but throughout the text, Sinclair offers these just really in-depth descriptions of what's going on, essentially. Since the text is fiction, Sinclair does not need to include factual verification. However, the details he describes convey a strong message about the topic and serve as the basis for a call to action. He actually, in real life, Upton Sinclair investigated the meatpacking industry, and based on his investigation and his time that he spent there, he wrote The Jungle, which is a fictional novel based around one family. But what he's saying is true, and if you wanted to find evidence to prove that what he's saying is true, you absolutely could, which is actually what makes this one of my favorite books of nonfiction, of fiction, because it's so moving the way that he writes. When you synthesize information, that means you're combining information and prior knowledge to gain a better understanding of a subject or to create a new idea. You typically will hear research papers, right? When you conduct research and you go to write a paper, you are putting together a synthesis, a synthesis essay or just you're synthesizing information in general. Most often you synthesize information when you read multiple texts on a topic. So, for example, you'll read multiple different texts, and then you draw your own conclusion, but you will cite those different texts in your own opinion. Now, you may also synthesize information when you bring your experience or knowledge to a text, especially if you're credible about something. So let's say I'm going to give a presentation about hunting and fishing. I grew up doing those things, so I can give firsthand experience in addition to factual evidence for whatever it is specifically I'm talking about with those two topics. You are combining what you already know with what you learn from a text or even several texts. So this is just a little diagram to put a visual idea into this. So information from the text, information from prior knowledge. When you combine the two, you have your synthesized ideas. The genre elements of a novel. It's an extended work of fiction. It has a purpose that can be determined through the examination of key details, and conveys a strong message about a topic. Now, the tricky thing about novels is they're really long, and sometimes there are multiple different messages or purposes. So you really have to dig into the details at different parts of the novel to track what is it that the takeaway is supposed to be. The next set of notes is going to come from Food Product Design, which will be the second text that we read, most likely later this week. Now, with this text, as an investigative journalist, Eric Schlosser's general purpose for writing is to inform or to persuade, or do some combination of the two. Investigative journalists they're going out in the field, they're trying to figure out what the truth is, and then they're reporting on it, right? Your newspapers, think of a newspaper journalist. Analyzing details from the section will allow you to infer what his specific purpose for writing the text was. Ask yourself what overall message is suggested by the content, diction, style, and rhetoric that Schlosser employs. Use these ideas to infer this purpose for writing and to determine what action he might want his audience to take. We talked about the call to action with the second inaugural address by Abraham Lincoln, but really think about, like, okay, they're telling us this, but why are they telling us? What do they want me to do about it? When you synthesize information from different texts, you connect information presented in different genres of text and in distinct areas, which can broaden your understanding of the subject. So you take, for example, common themes, right? We've talked a lot about inequality. If you're tracking inequality, you can look at examples of this from literally through the centuries. When you do that, you might notice details that are similar in between texts, even though they're entire cultures and generations apart. All right, so like the other diagram that I gave you, with the example of this text in particular, in the other text, what we're going to be doing is we're going to take information from Fast Food Nation, information from the jungle, and we're going to synthesize these ideas. From now until to the end of the school year, essentially, we are going to be looking at synthesizing information. Now, you might be asking yourself, how does this differ from argumentation? And the answer to that is not really. It doesn't. The only difference is with synthesizing, you're taking information from multiple sources and putting it together, as where argumentative, you're focused specifically on your own argument. This can be more of a here are the facts kind of thing. A few genre elements of investigative journalism. It uses facts and quotations to support ideas, exposes actions or events hidden from public view, and appears in newspapers, magazines, or on websites. Actually, I will add, this could also appear in documentaries, which is really common. I actually recently watched one about a journalist who uncovered a huge a crime spree amongst satanic ritualists in the US in the 80s, which was really interesting. Netflix is a great harbor for these types of shows. All right, language conventions. Now, writers use dashes to insert supplementary or parenthetical information into a sentence. Think of it as something that you can, in theory, remove from the sentence and the rest of it will still make sense. Dashes can indicate an abrupt interruption in thought, or they can insert a pause in a sentence before providing extra information. This is actually most common, especially in poems. Dashes are also used to set off a definition of a term or to offer information that is not essential to the main topic of the sentence. All right, so those are the notes for the next two texts we're going to be reading. Make sure that you've taken thorough notes because this will be on your final exam. But more importantly, or of equal importance, I guess, these will be the notes you'll need for the next 2 weeks of class. All right, please let me know if you have any questions. I will see you guys later.